The rain hammered against Marcus's apartment window like angry fists, each drop a reminder of how unforgiving the world could be. He pressed his face against the cold glass, watching the storm transform the street below into a river of despair. That's when he saw Hero, a young woman huddled beneath the broken awning of the abandoned storefront across the street, her shoulders shaking with what he assumed was cold but soon realized were sobs that cut through the thunder itself. Marcus Chen had seen enough heartbreak in his 34 years to recognize it from 4 stories up. 2 years ago, when cancer took Sarah, he'd learned that sometimes life strips everything away until you're left with nothing but the choice to either become bitter or become better. He'd chosen better, for his 8-year-old daughter Emma's sake, but watching this stranger dissolve into the storm brought back every memory of feeling utterly alone in a crowded world. Without thinking, he grabbed his jacket and headed for the door. Emma looked up from her homework at the kitchen table, her dark eyes so much like her mother's, filled with curiosity. "Where are you going, Dad?" "It's pouring out there." "Just checking on someone, sweetheart." "I'll be right back." The girl couldn't have been more than 22, maybe 23. Her designer clothes, now soaked and clinging to her thin frame, told one story, but her hollow eyes told another entirely. She flinched when Marcus approached, clutching a small backpack like it contained everything she had left in the world. "Hey," he said softly, crouching down to her level. "You okay?" She looked up at him with the wariness of someone who'd learned that kindness often came with conditions. "I'm fine," she whispered, but her voice cracked on the word fine, betraying everything she was trying to hide. "I've got a couch upstairs. It's warm, dry, no strings attached." Marcus extended his hand. "I'm Marcus, and I promise I'm not as scary as I look when I'm soaked." The girlie who introduced herself only as Lilia hesitated for a long moment before accepting his help. As they climbed the stairs to his modest 2-bedroom apartment, Marcus couldn't help but notice the tremor in her hands and the way she startled at every sound. Emma greeted their unexpected guest with the kind of unfiltered warmth that only children possess. "Are you okay? You look really sad. Do you want some hot chocolate?" "Dad makes the best hot chocolate in the whole building," which isn't saying much because Mrs. Patterson on the 2nd floor only makes coffee. For the first time since Marcus had found her, Lily smiled a small, genuine curve of her lips that transformed her entire face. "Hot chocolate sounds perfect." As the evening wore on, Marcus learned fragments of Lily's story. She'd had a fight with her father, the kind that breaks everything, she'd said quietly, and had nowhere else to go. Her phone was dead, her credit cards weren't working, and pride had prevented her from reaching out to friends who might ask too many questions. What Marcus didn't learn was that Lily's full name was Lillian Hartwell, and her father was Richard Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Industries, one of the largest tech companies on the East Coast. He didn't know that the fight she'd referenced had happened in the boardroom of a 50-story Manhattan skyscraper, where she'd walked away from a $100 million inheritance rather than compromise her values. He didn't know that her broken credit cards had been deliberately cancelled by a father who believed that cutting off her financial lifeline would force her to come crawling back. All Marcus knew was that she needed help, and helping felt like the most natural thing in the world. Over the next 3 weeks, Lily became part of their small family's rhythm. She helped Emma with her homework, sharing knowledge from her MBA that she claimed to have picked up here and there. She insisted on contributing to groceries despite Marcus's protests, somehow producing cash when needed. She cooked elaborate dinners with ingredients she claimed to find on sale, though Marcus had never seen sales quite that good at their local market. The transformation was remarkable. The hollow-eyed girl who'd been crying in the rain began to laugh at Emma's jokes, to sing while doing dishes, to curl up on their second-hand couch reading stories to his daughter before bedtime. For the first time since Sarah's death, their apartment felt like a complete home again. But Lily was fighting her own battles. Late at night, Marcus would hear her crying softly on the couch, whispering apologies into her phone that she never quite managed to send. During the day, she'd stand by the window for long stretches, staring out at the city with an expression that suggested she was seeing not just buildings, but possibilities she'd left behind. Emma, with the intuitive wisdom of children, seemed to understand something that Marcus missed. "She's really rich, isn't she, Dad?" she asked one evening while Lily was in the shower. Marcus looked up from the medical bills he'd been quietly sorting out, always quietly, always when Emma wasn't supposed to notice. "What makes you say that? The way she talks about money, like it's not real. And her clothes are really nice, even though they're wet and stuff. Plus, she knows about fancy food and she taught me French yesterday." Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Emma's school, and his heart immediately began to race. Evening calls from school were never good news. "Mr. Chen, this is Principal Williams." Emma collapsed during after-school care. "We've called an ambulance." The next several hours blurred together in a nightmare of fluorescent hospital lights and medical terminology that Marcus pretended to understand. Emma's leukemia, which had been in remission for 8 months, was back. The treatment would be aggressive, expensive, and there were no guarantees. Lily sat beside him in the waiting room, holding his hand while he made impossible calculations in his head. His insurance would cover some of it, but not enough. Not nearly enough. The medical bills he'd been hiding from Emma were already crushing him, and this would bury them both. "I need to make some calls," Lily said quietly, squeezing his hand before disappearing into the hallway. What Marcus didn't see was Lily standing in that hospital corridor, finally dialing the number she'd been avoiding for 3 weeks. What he didn't hear was her voice, steady now and filled with quiet authority, speaking to assistants and lawyers and accountants with the fluency of someone who'd grown up in boardrooms. The next morning, while Emma slept peacefully under sedation, a man in an expensive suit approached Marcus in the waiting room. "Mr. Chen, I'm James Morrison, Emma's new care coordinator. Her treatment has been fully covered by an anonymous benefactor. The best pediatric oncologist in the state will be taking over her case, and we've arranged for experimental treatments that aren't typically covered by insurance." Marcus stared at the man in confusion. "I think there's been a mistake. We can't afford her." "There's no mistake. Everything's been handled." It wasn't until later that afternoon, when Lily was nowhere to be found and Emma was asking where her friend had gone, that Marcus began to piece together the truth. The business card left on his kitchen counter was simple: Lillian Hartwell, Chief Innovation Officer, Hartwell Industries. Below it, a handwritten note: "Thank you for showing me that home isn't about money, it's about people who choose to love you. Emma is going to beat this, I've made sure of it. And Marcus, the room is paid up for the next year, in case you ever want to offer it to another stranger who needs to remember what kindness looks like." 6 months later, Emma's hair was growing back in soft curls, and her laugh too once again filled their apartment. Marcus had tried to find Lily, to thank her properly, to tell her that the money was too much, that he could never repay her. But Lillian Hartwell, it turned out, was very good at disappearing when she wanted to. It wasn't until Emma's first day back at school that they saw her again. She was standing across the street from their building, no longer the broken girl he'd found in the rain, but someone who'd clearly found her way back to herself. When she saw them in the window, she waved Ada, and then, to Marcus's surprise, she crossed the street and climbed the familiar stairs. "I was wondering," she said when he opened the door, "if that room might still be available." Turns out I never really found what I was looking for in those boardrooms. But I think I found it in a little apartment where a man and his daughter taught me that the richest people in the world are the ones who give when they have nothing left to give. Emma launched herself into Lily's arms with a squeal of delight, and Marcus felt something in his chest that he'd thought was broken forever finally click back into place. Sometimes, he realized, the people who save you are the ones you thought you were saving all along.